The sky in the star field in the border area is always gray, like an old cloth blackened by war fire. Occasionally, there are several cracked flashes to tear open the cloud layer, illuminating the deserted earth below. Lin Hao squatted behind a broken wall, holding a handful of slammed gun that had been worn to a point of almost evaporated. He was surrounded by indesolate explosion sounds and mechanical shoelaces crushing gravel. His helmet display is filled with red warnings, and less than 10% of the energy storage is left, and he may be working hard at any time. Brother Hao, the mechanized pioneer of the enemy, has been pressed to 3 kilometers away. Our defense line can't be stopped. The ear match was the sound of Yi Shuang's quick voice, and the background sound was the sound of her fingers knocking on the combat tablet. It was obvious that she was trying to recalculate the retreat route. Lin Hao gritted his teeth, wiped the mud from his face, and whispered a low spell. Their team was originally just a patrol mission for the border defense line. As a result, half an hour ago, the mechanized team of Carl Ironblades burst without warning, directly blowing their ground into ruins. There were originally more than 20 people in the team, but now less than half of them can breathe. Others are either dead or lost, scattered in this ghost place called the Land of the Cracks. Shuang, don't waste your time, give me the latest retreat position. Lin Hao growled and glanced at the distance through the cracks in the defense wall. There, dozens of heavy combat armors were pushing in, and the huge gun barrel sprayed out a hot energy beam every few seconds, blowing the surrounding bones into pieces. The guy Carl didn't plan to keep a living at all. This was a rush to clean up the store. I found you, but... Brother Hao, communication interference is getting more and more serious, and the data flow here is almost interrupted. Yi Shuang's voice continued, and it was obvious that the energy field in the crack land began to make trouble again. This place is originally an evil gate. Ordinary communication equipment is similar to a waste gate as soon as it comes in. Even the most advanced combat systems will lose their spirits at any time. Not to mention that these ruins are all natural barriers that can be swallowed up at any time, including cliffs, poisonous fogs, and inexplicable energy vortexes. Lin Hao looked down at the helmet display screen and barely received the coordinates point sent by Yi Shuang. He gritted his teeth and signaled to the remaining warriors, "Fight me and don't lose the team. We have to cover up the next thing, otherwise we have to explain it here." Several soldiers were on their heads, their faces were covered with dirt and blood, and there was not much fear in their eyes. They had been with Lin Hao for so long and had long been licking blood from the knife. Lin Hao is not a natural leader, but he is cruel and can escape with everyone in every mission. Slowly, everyone is willing to listen to him. The team began to move towards the coordinates, with all the broken war car bodies and scattered weapon parts along the way. The terrain of the crackland is complex like a maze. The ground under the foot will suddenly collapse, revealing deep and invisible cracks, and there are still blue energy flashes inside, as if something hidden is not human. Lin Hao always felt that this place was not simple. The battle in the star field in the border area has been fought for so many years. The rift area has always been a forbidden area, and even the strongest troops dare not go deeper easily. It is said that there are lost ancient military technology buried here, but some people say that this is the source of invasion of strange stars, and most of the people who come in have gone there without going back. Brother Hao, there is a silence in front. The soldier walking in front suddenly felt a low voice, pointing to a pile of collapsed buildings and killing him from a distance. Lin Hao narrowed his eyes and saw several blurred hot source signals moving through the heat imaging mode of his helmet. Not their people, nor Car's mechanical team, the movements were too flexible, like a soldier. Prepare to get the enemy, don't open the gun, wait for my signal. Lin Hao ordered in a low voice and approached with the team. After a few minutes, they finally saw the other party's appearance clearly, a team of soldiers wearing old battle suits, covered with various modified weapons, led by a burly slap with a cheek full of beards, and a scar on their left eye. "Hey, the soldiers on the border defense line, I didn't expect you to be able to breathe." The Hanzi grinned, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth, and the sound was as thick as a sandpaper grinding iron. He pointed at Lin Hao a little, as if he met an old acquaintance. "I am Zhang Yan, the ground snake in this ruin." If you want to survive, follow me. Car's mechanical dog will not wait for you to catch your breath. Lin Hao glanced at his eyebrows and was in a hurry to reply. He looked at Zhang Yan and his men. Although these soldiers looked like a group of Ukrainians, the aura they spread on their bodies should not be underestimated. Especially Zhang Yan, the modified heavy electromagnetic gun in his hand is definitely not an ordinary color. It is obviously not a simple character to be able to mix in the cracks. Why help us? Lin Hao asked coldly, holding the stepping gun without relaxing a little. He doesn't believe that there will be no food in the sky, and no one will help you without any reason in the place like the star field. Zhang Yan laughed and patted his chest. Simple, I don't think he's a gangster like that. He thought he was the king of the border. If he didn't accept it, he would crush who he would. I've long wanted to find a chance to give him some color. Although you are a little ill-fighting, you have some fighting power. We work together and may be able to get better. Lin Hao didn't say anything, and he weighed the pros and cons of flying fast in his brain. The current situation is indeed unpleasant. Car's mechanized team may catch up at any time, and it is impossible for them to break through. Although Zhang Yan doesn't seem to be reliable, at least he has no intention of being a foe at the moment. Cooperation may be the only way out. Okay, the deal. Lin Hao finally pointed and reached out to shake Zhang Yan, but I warn you, don't play with the flowers, otherwise my first defeat you. Zhang Yan grinned and did not take Lin Hao's threat seriously. Don't worry, we have the same goals, let's survive first. The two teams quickly merged and moved towards the direction pointed by Zhang Yan. On the way, Zhang Yan briefly introduced the situation of the crackland. This place not only has complex terrain, but also has various unknown energy interferences. Ordinary combat systems are almost useless here and can only survive through experience and direct vision. He and his army, relying on picking up the dead and selling information in the ruins, have been scrambling for several years, and are considered natives in this area. The moment ahead is my temporary moment. Let's hide first. Car's team dare not come in easily. Zhang Yan pointed to a valley covered by poisonous fogs and said in a low voice, but I have to remind you that although this place is safe, it is also a bit evil. You can often hear strange sounds, such as the static movement of the machine. Lin Hao was moved in his heart and didn't say anything, but just silently remembered this information. He always thought that there was something hidden in the crack, and the machine sound that Zhang Yan said might not be wrong, but a certain kind of thread. At this moment, Yi Shuang's voice suddenly came from the earphones, and it was suddenly rushing but unusually. Brother Hao, be careful, the energy field, the abnormal thing is something close. Before the sound was finished, the ground suddenly shook violently, like something huge awakened from the underground sea. Lin Hao raised his head suddenly, and saw a huge shadow floating in the poisonous fog that was far away, accompanied by the low sound of mechanical geeks. It was not Car's armor, nor any known human weapon, but a completely unfamiliar structure, radiating a dark blue light throughout, like a monster entering from another world. Crockett, what a ghost thing is this? Zhang Yan couldn't help but swear, and then put on the electromagnetic gun and prepared to open the fire. Don't move. Lin Hao held his arm and stared at the shadow. For some reason, a strange feeling suddenly broke out in his heart, as if had been summoned by something. Although the structure seemed dangerous, it did not attack them immediately, but instead turned slowly, as if scanning the surrounding environment. Brother Hao, we have to withdraw. This thing is not right. Yi Shuang's voice came from the earphones again, this time with obvious panic. But Lin Hao didn't move, and suddenly a big thought flashed in his brain. If the ancient military technology was really hidden in the rift, would this be some kind of thread? Or opportunity? Zhang Yan, take the others first, I'll stay and see. Lin Hao said in a low voice, his temperament was beyond doubt. Are you crazy? This thing is not easy to mess with at first glance. Zhang Yan widened his eyes, as if he was looking at a neurotic disease. Stop talking, do what I say. Lin Hao glared at him fiercely, then turned around and walked towards the structure. Although he was a little scared, he knew that if he didn't take risks, they would never be just cannon fodder on the border defense line and would never be able to turn over. As we approached step by step, the energy interference in the air became stronger and stronger. The helmet display has been completely black and can only be observed by the naked eye. The structure seemed to sense us approaching, and stopped moving, making a low buzz. Then, a blue light shot out from its body, directly covering Lin Hao. "Brother Hao!" Yi Shuang's shocking voice came from the earphones, but was soon drowned by the static noise. Lin Hao felt a flash in front of him, and his mind seemed to be dragged into a sideless empty space by something. A cold mechanical sound came to his ears, without any emotion, which made his heart pound. The appropriate person was detected, the war core system was activated, the initialization sequence began. At the same time, a larger storm was curling deep in the rift. Carl Ironblade stood in his finger armor, looking at the energy fluctuations far away through the holographic screen, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. It seems that the things in the ruins were finally touched. "Lin Hao, you only need to click the hole, but you brought me a little bit." He turned to the adjutant beside him, and his words were cold. "If you send the order, the entire army will be forced into the cracks. I want to see how big a wave that so-called ancient technology can cause." Lin Hao's consciousness seemed to be penetrated into a dark ocean without any side, surrounded by cold air, and the mechanical sounds on his ears were still reverberating, as if they were directly diamonding into his brain. The initialization of the war core system, the appropriate gene sequence is confirmed, the access permission is open. He wanted to stutter, but found that his body did not hear the slightest, and he could not even move his fingers. He could only let the blue light swim across his body, as if he had been analyzed thoroughly by something. I don't know how long it took, maybe a few seconds, or a few hours. The darkness finally began to fade away. Lin Hao suddenly opened his eyes and found that he was still standing in the ruins of the crackland. Under his feet were familiar gravel and soil, and the air was still filled with the pungent smell of poisonous fog. The huge structure was still in front of him, but it no longer emitted blue light, but was floating quietly, as if it had entered a certain waiting state. "My mouth, am I still alive?" Lin Hao muttered in a low voice, wiped the cold sweat from his head, and his heart was still beating wildly. He lowered his head and checked his equipment. The helmet display actually returned to normal, and even a bunch of unfamiliar data streams were added, like some kind of war interface, which showed the words "the core system has been activated, the battle module is to be activated." "Brother Hao! Are you okay?" That blue light almost scared me to death. The sound of Yi Shuang coming from the earphones was filled with clear relaxed speech, and there were also discussions between Zhang Yan and others in the background. "I'm fine, don't quarrel, let me figure out the situation first." Lin Hao replied in a low voice, his eyes not leaving the structure. He approached carefully and found that the surface of this thing was covered with complicated patterns, like some lost technological product, which was definitely not any weapon or armor commonly seen in the star field in the neighboring world. The mechanical sound that I just heard suddenly flashed in my brain, the war core system. Is this difficult to say, that ancient military technology buried in the cracks? Just as he was thinking, a prompt suddenly popped up on the helmet interface. "Did you start the core module after detecting the adapter command?" Lin Hao was stunned for a moment, and sang "start" silently in his brain. As a result, the next second, the data flow on the interface began to refresh violently, and a bunch of combat maps, energy readings and equipment status were all displayed, and even the quick reported thrust gun in his hand was marked with the reparable status. "This thing, can you repair weapons?" Lin Hao's eyes lit up, and Lima won the repair option. After a few seconds, a faint blue light shot out from the helmet and directly covered the step gun. The worn parts on the gun actually started to reorganize at a speed visible to the naked eye, and even the energy storage was restored to 50%. "Bored, it's awesome." Lin Hao couldn't help but swear, and started to shoot and found that the feel was better than when he bought it. This system is not simple, not only can be repaired, but also shows the surrounding terrain analysis on the interface, and even marks several potential enemy ambush points, such as directly stuffing the war scene information into his brain. "Brother Hao, are you fucking? That ghost thing won't ruin your brain, right?" Zhang Yan's voice came from a distance, with a few sarcasm, but more worried. He stood in the cover of Yi Shuang and the others a few 10 meters away, each holding a tight weapon and preparing to respond at any time. "Don't waste your time, come and see this." Lin Hao slapped at them, and there was no excitement on his face. He thought that this time he really got the treasure. If this core system of the war can really help them improve their fighting power, it will not be a sudden end, and it will not be impossible to bite the Carl Iron Blade in one bite. When Yi Shuang came for the first time, she still held the combat tablet in her hand, her eyes swept the structure of her eyes, and stood up with her eyebrows. "Brother Hao, this thing is not in line, the energy reading is completely over standard, and my equipment cannot be parsed. What has it done to you just now?" "To put it simply, I seem selected by it." Lin Hao snatched his shoulders and shared the data on the helmet interface with Yi Shuang. "Look at this, the core system of the war can repair and analyze the war scene, and it feels like some kind of lost technology." Yi Shuang picked up the data and swept a few times, and her face became more and more serious. "This is not ordinary military technology, Brother Hao. These codes and structures are like something like a strange star power. I have seen similar records in the data library of the border defense line, saying that the cracks were once the first fallen foot point of the strange star invasion, and this thing may have something to do with that." Extraordinary star power? Lin Hao's heart sank, and his brain flashed through various news flowing from the star domain in the border area. After the war has been fighting for so many years, the hatred between humans and alien forces has long been engraved in the bones. If this system is really alien technology, would there be any post-mortem disease when used? But when I think about it, the current situation has not given him too many choices. Car's mechanization team may be under pressure at any time. No matter what it is, survive first. Don't worry about that much, use it first to try it. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and turned to Zhang Yan. "Old Zhang, who has the most bad equipment in your people? I'll try to repair it." Zhang Yan raised his eyebrows. Although he didn't believe it, he still let his subordinates take a handful of electromagnetic guns that were almost disintegrated. Lin Hao operated the helmet interface and swept the blue light again. After a few seconds, the gun actually recovered by 70% to 80%. Although it was not in a brand new state, it could at least turn on the fire normally. "Boke, you kid really have two tricks." Zhang Yan's eyes straightened, he patted Lin Hao's shoulder and laughed. "If I had known that you had this ability, I would have been with you long ago. Tell me, what would you do next?" Lin Hao was not in a hurry to answer, and looked at the surrounding situation through the combat map on the interface. The system tagged several areas with the strongest energy interference, and also showed that Car's mechanization team had approached the outside of the cleft land, less than 5 kilometers away from them. "If you don't act, you will be surrounded soon. Shuang, analyze, can we use the terrain to counter a wave?" Lin Hao shared the map data with Yi Shuang, and tried several points in his language. He knew that head-on fight was definitely not Car's opponent, but if he could use the complex environment of the crackland, he might delay time and even kill him. Yi Shuang studied it for a few minutes and finally raised her head and said, "There is a way to show that there is an energy vortex in the northeast direction on the map. The interference is very strong. Car's team of the A-team will definitely be affected when they enter, and communication and firepower will be greatly reduced. We can lead them over and use the terrain to fight." "It sounds good, but the risk is also great." Zhang Yan curled his lips and interrupted, "I have been to that place once, but I almost haven't come back. The energy vortex does not only affect the armor, but also the same for people. The equipment may be directly reported. I don't have to choose, it's better than being so dead." Lin Hao said as soon as he made a decision, and turned to the others, "Prepare it and bring us a useful equipment. We will launch it in half an hour. The system repair speed is limited. Let's first choose the most important weapon repair first, and let's talk about it on the other roads." For the next half hour, everyone was too busy to communicate. Lin Hao used the combat core system to repair several key weapons. Yi Shuang kept adjusting the route on the combat tablet, trying to avoid the areas where energy interference is the most serious. Zhang Yan and his squad were responsible for clearing the potential threats around them. In the cracks, in addition to Car's army, there were also many scattered strange satellite bodies that might be activated at any time. Before leaving, Lin Hao stood in front of the team and said a few simple sentences. I heard that we are not escaping our lives this time, but we want to give Carl a look. Whoever loses the chain, don't blame me for being rude. Follow me and survive, we still have a chance to flip the plate. The soldiers clicked a little, and although they were tired, they had a few more fighting spirits in their eyes. Zhang Yan grinned and followed Lin Hao with an electromagnetic gun. Boy, you're a little leader. Okay, I'll follow you. The team began to move towards the energy vortex in the northeast direction, and the terrain along the way became increasingly steeper, and the ground under the feet frequently experienced low vibrations, as if something was about to move underground. Lin Hao's helmet interface is constantly updating data, indicating that the energy interference around is getting stronger and stronger, and even the computing speed of the system itself is starting to slow down. Brother Hao, there is the vortex area ahead, pay attention to the foot. Yi Shuang walked in the middle of the team, and the combat tablet in her hand had almost lost its power, so she could only rely on the naked eye to observe. She pointed far away. In the air there seemed to be distorted, forming a huge blue aperture, with an arc flash inside, as if it would swallow people at any time. Everyone, keep a distance, walk around, don't go in. Lin Hao ordered in a low voice, and scanned the inside of the vortex through the system. Data shows that the core energy of this thing is far higher. Not to mention it is an armor, even ordinary battle suits may be directly burned. This system, why does it feel more and more evil? Lin Hao murmured in his heart, but he didn't have time to think about it and led the team along the road. Sure enough, although the interference around was still strong, their equipment was barely able to move forward, not directly reporting it as Zhang Yan said. At this moment, a deep sound suddenly came from behind, like the static silence of the heavy armored carpet crushing the ground. Lin Hao suddenly turned around. Through the distance mode of the helmet, he saw that in the poisonous fog from a distance, the mechanized team of dozens of Car's mechanized teams were approaching. He was wearing a huge force armor, which was pitch black all over, and there was a faint red light on the gun barrel. Carl is so fast. Zhang Yan gritted his teeth, then put on the electromagnetic gun and prepared to turn on the fire, but Lin Hao held it down. Don't worry, they haven't noticed us yet, so lead them in first. Lin Hao said in a low voice, staring at the finger armor. The system interface has marked the opponent's weakness, indicating that the energy core of the armor has a high load risk. If it can be attracted to the vortex, it may be able to directly suck it. Shuang, prepare for the enemy plan. Zhang Yan, take a few people to the side wing to ambush and listen to my signal action. Lin Hao quickly issued the command, and at the same time the operating system tried to interfere with the other party's communication signal. Sure enough, a few seconds later, the car team's forward speed obviously slowed down, as if they had received an error data and began to shift towards the vortex. It's done! Yi Shuang said in surprise, with a flash of excitement in her eyes. Brother Hao, their communication has been intercepted, and they are now walking towards the center of the vortex. Don't be too early to get up, prepare for the battle. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and tightened his slash. Although the plan is smooth, car is not a fuel-efficient light. Once you find that it is wrong, you will definitely fight back immediately. With such a man, it is still a lot of luck to fight hard. Sure enough, a few minutes later, car's commander armor suddenly stopped, and the gun barrel suddenly turned to the direction where Lin Hao and the others were hiding. A hot energy beam directly rushed over, blowing the ground gravel flying. Scatter! Lin Hao yelled, quickly dispersed with the team, and at the same time, the opponent's firepower point was locked through the system and quickly counterattacked. Although the energy beam of the rushing gun is not as good as the firepower of the motor armor, it is precise and hits the link of a small motor armor for a few seconds, forcing the other party to act. Lin Hao, you're just a little bit, and you really dare to show your head. Carl's voice came from the siege armor, as cold as a ghost crawling out of the ground. I think you can survive by hiding in this ghost place. Today, I'm going to crush you with your hands. If you have the ability, Come and try it. Lin Hao sneered, not showing any weakness. At the same time, the operating system tried to further interfere with the other party's energy core. Data shows that the interference of the vortex has begun to affect Car's armor, and the firepower output has dropped significantly, but the other party is still approaching, as if he is in a hurry to fight the internet. The battle instantly entered the white heat, and both sides launched a fierce exchange of fire around the vortex. Although Lin Hao's team is small, he can barely deal with it by relying on the combat analysis of terrain and system. Zhang Yan carried the wings of the soldiers and kept striking from the side, and Yi Shuangye tried to crack Car's communication channel to find more cracks. "Brother Hao, hold on, I'm about to crack their backup system." Yi Shuang gritted her teeth and operated her fingers quickly on the tablet, with sweat all over the top. "Hurry, we don't have much time." Lin Hao growled, and at the same time dodged an energy beam and quickly switched positions. He knew that this battle was just the beginning. Car's real trump card had not yet appeared, and there seemed to be a greater threat waiting for them in the depths of the rift. Lin Hao hid behind a broken rock cover, his ears were filled with the harsh sound of the energy beam bursting, and the burnt metal smell and the pungent smell of poisonous smoke were filled with the air. He clenched his teeth, and the combat data on the helmet interface kept refreshing, showing that Carl's mechanization team was tightening and surrounding the circle. Although the interference of the energy vortex caused their firepower to drop by 30%, the darkened armor was still like an unshakable mountain, and the gun barrel trembled every time it fired. "Frost, why is the cracking progress? We can't stop." Lin Hao growled, and at the same time switched to the shooting mode of the rushing gun. A precise energy beam hit a small armor sensor, forcing it to lose control for a short time, hitting the arc of the vortex, and instantly bursting into the vortex arc. "Give me 2 more minutes. Their backup system encryption is too complicated, but I have found the loophole." Yi Shuang's voice came from the earphones, with a few rushes. Her fingers were almost knocking out Mars on the combat tablet, and the sweat dripped down the head, blurring the visual line. 2 minutes? I'm afraid I won't be able to kill you for 2 seconds. Zhang Yan's thick voice came from the side. He was carrying several soldiers and using modified electromagnetic guns to storm the enemy. Although he successfully dragged a few armors, he also lost a lot of money. His subordinate was hit directly by the energy beam, and his battle suit was half worn, and his life and death were unknown now. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and scanned the battlefield through the core system of the war. Data shows that the energy interference of the vortex is gradually increasing. Although Car's machine armor team can still move, the overload risk of the energy core has approached the point, especially the indicator armor. The system marked its rear heat dissipation port as the biggest weakness. As long as it can hit it close, it may be able to directly suck it. Zhang Yan, the person who brought you, continues to attract firepower. I want to go behind that big guy. Lin Hao quickly ordered, and at the same time, the operating system adjusted the surrounding terrain analysis and found a sideway that could barely pass through the high-risk area along the vortex, but now it is not enough. You kid is really desperate? The energy field in that place can cook people. Zhang Yan said, but he still pointed at the head and shot another shot at the enemy's ground, pulling the attention of several armored armors. Lin Hao no longer said no. He lowered his head and penetrated into a narrow passage of the poisonous fog cover. The gravel under his feet was burned by energy interference. The temperature warning of the battle suit kept flashing, and the data codes began to appear on the helmet interface, but the core system of the war technology was still upright, pointing out the safest way to him. He gritted his teeth and snatched a fierce and hard squeezing, and finally trampled behind the finger armor. Far, Car's voice came out from the motor armor again, and he mocked him coldly. Lin Hao, do you think you can survive by hiding? The motor warning is always a man. No matter how hard it is, he can't escape from my palm. Before he finished speaking, the motor armor's gun barrel suddenly turned, and an energy beam appeared in the direction where Lin Hao had just hidden, exploding the rocks into pieces. I don't plan to hide. Lin Hao sneered, and quickly approached from the back as the other party's attention was distracted. His operating system maximizes the energy output of the pivotal gun and aims at the heat dissipation port on the back of the machine armor. The protection in that place is the weakest. As long as it hits, the overloaded energy core is likely to explode directly. Go to die. Lin Hao growled, pulled down the trigger, and a hot energy beam shot out directly, accurately hitting the heat dissipation mouth. In an instant, a spark burst out from the back of the machine armor. With a harsh warning, the movements of the entire machine armor were clearly revealed, as if part of its power had been lost. Bastard! You dare! Carl's voice came from the inside of the armor, carrying a sense of incredible anger, but before he could finish his speech, the energy core of the armor was finally overwhelmed and a low sound of slaughter came out. Then the entire rear part was blown open, and the smoke and debris scattered. It's done! Lin Hao was happy, but he didn't have time to catch his breath. A red warning suddenly popped up on the helmet interface. When the high-energy reaction was detected, the energy vortex was about to lose control. It is recommended to withdraw immediately. At the same time, the ground began to shake violently, as if something was awakened from the ground. The blue arcs around him were flickering wildly, and a dangerous breath was filled with the air. Brother Hao, I cracked their system. Car's team communication has been terrified, but what's going on with this vortex? The energy reading is completely out of control. Yi Shuang's voice came from the ear machine, with obvious panic. Don't worry about so many, everyone, retreat immediately. Lin Hao yelled and ran quickly towards the team. Although Car's commander armor was recreated, other armors were still fighting. If they did not take advantage of the current outbreak, they would probably be completely defeated. Zhang Yan led the army with his army team and rushed out first, with mud and blood on his face, but he grinned, "Boy, you're doing it well. The guy Carl is here to eat. Let's run away, this place is going to explode." The team quickly gathered and retreated toward the vortex along the way, but the energy interference became stronger and stronger. Cracks began to appear on the protection layer of the battle suit, and the computing speed of the core system of the war science became abnormally slow. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and forced himself to advance forward. He felt that the battle was far away and there seemed to be a greater threat waiting for them in the depths of the rift. Sure enough, after running less than a kilometer, the ground suddenly shook violently again. A huge crack broke out from the ground. With the sound of a low mechanical horn, a large structure rose from the crack, and the whole body emitted a blue light. Its shape was very similar to the structure of Lin Hao's previous touching core system, but its body shape was larger and its energy fluctuations were even more terrifying. Another trough comes? Zhang Yan couldn't help but swear, and then put on the electromagnetic gun and prepared to open the fire, but Lin Hao held it down. Don't, this thing is not simple. Lin Hao stared at the structure, and the data on the helmet interface was refreshed wildly, showing that the energy level of this thing is far superior to that of Car, and even the core system of the war sciences cannot fully parse its structure. At the same time, the cold mechanical sound of the ears sounded again. When high-level energy is detected, the core system enters the combat mode, and the suitable ones are ready to receive the battle. Come on the fight? What a joke, it's obvious that this thing is not something we can do. Lin Hao replied in his heart, but without having time to react, the structure suddenly turned around, emitted a blue light, and directly locked their positions. The next second, several beams of energy shot out from it, so fast that they could hardly see clearly, forcing everyone to scatter on the spot. Disperse! Find a cover! Lin Hao yelled and quickly hid behind a broken wall. At the same time, the operating system tried to analyze the opponent's weaknesses. However, data shows that this structure has almost no obvious breakthrough, and the energy core is wrapped in thick armor, so it is impossible to attack in close proximity. Brother Hao, this thing may be the guardian of alien power. The story of the Riftland is right. This is their invasion source. Yi Shuang hid far away, with a few trembling sounds in her voice, but she still strongly analyzed. When I just cracked Car's communication, I found that they were also tracing the secrets of this place. Car even planned to use these alien technology to strengthen his army. No matter what it is, survive first. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and adjusted the surrounding terrain data through the system, trying to find a way to the conflict. But the structure seemed to have impulsed the heart and kept allowing them to escape, and the energy beam kept shooting, forcing the team to move continuously in the ruins and could not be wiped out at all. At this moment, a low bird suddenly came from far away, and Carr's mechanized team was approaching again. Although the siege armor had been destroyed, Carr himself seemed to be still alive. He made a cold smile through the communication channel. Lin Hao, it seems that you have discovered the real secret of the Crackland. Very good, I'm going to settle these strange technologies. As for your snatches, it's the sacrifices for me. Is this guy still dead? Lin Hao gritted his teeth, but the current situation could not tolerate him being distracted. In front of us is an undifferentiated attack of the alien structure, and behind is a pursuit from the Carl army. The situation of the team can be said to be the ultimate in the absolute. Brother Hao, the system shows that the core energy of the structure is rising, as if preparing to launch a large-scale attack. We must stop it, otherwise the entire rift will be flattened. Yi Shuang's voice came again, carrying unprecedented solemnity. Stop it? How to stop it? I can't even get close to you. Lin Hao growled, but a crazy idea suddenly flashed in his brain. He looked down at the helmet interface. The combat core system was still moving. Although the speed was slow, a prompt was still displayed. When the adapter crisis was detected, did the core overload mode be activated? Warning, this mode will cause irreversible damage to the adapter. Overload mode? Lin Hao was shocked. Although he didn't know that this thing was a fucking thing, it seemed like some kind of desperate means. He gritted his teeth and weighed the pros and cons in his brain. There is no way out of the current situation. If you don't take a try, everyone will have to explain it here. Start. Lin Hao silently recited a silent voice in his brain. The next second, the data flow on the helmet interface was refreshed wildly, and a strong energy stormed out of the battle service, as if it was directly pouring into his body, making him feel a pain in an instant, but at the same time, his strength and speed also increased several times, and the energy output of the step gun doubled. Trouble, this feeling, is a bit cool. Lin Hao growled, and took advantage of the structure's energy beam swept in other directions and suddenly rushed out, as fast as a shadow, approaching the other party's core armor. Brother Hao, are you crazy? Yi Shuang's shocking voice came from her earphones, but Lin Hao could no longer listen to the reply, and all his attention was focused on the goal in front of him. The system constantly prompts the energy fluctuations of the structure, and at the same time marks a shortest attack path, forcing him to complete a fatal blow in a few seconds. Near, closer. Lin Hao could almost feel the terrifying heat emitted by the structure. The protection layer of the fighting suit had begun to melt, but he still gritted his teeth and rushed to the front of the opposite side, took the gun, and pulled the fender hard against the gap in the core guardrail. A reinforced energy beam shot out directly, and with a harsh tear sound, the armor was finally torn apart, revealing the flashing energy core inside. Go to die! Lin Hao roared, concentrating all the energy on the last blow, and the energy beam directly penetrated the core, causing a dramatic explosion in an instant. The structure emits a low sorrow, and the whole body begins to disintegrate, and the blue light scatters, like a smoke in the night sky. The explosion of the shock wave directly lifted Lin Hao. He fell heavily to the ground, almost completely wiped out the battle service, half of the screen on the helmet interface, and his ears were covered with quiet noise. But he still climbed up and watched the structure turn into a pile of slaughter, and finally felt relieved in his heart. Brother Hao, are you still alive? Yi Shuang and Zhang Yan quickly ran over with the others, their faces full of anxiety and surprise. Lin Hao grinned and reluctantly snatched his hands. I can't die, but this load mode really hurts so much that his mother feels like she's almost broken. Boy, you were so cruel that you just now. You can even get rid of strange things. I admire you. Zhang Yan patted Lin Hao's shoulder. Although there was a him in his language, his eyes were filled with respect. But before they could catch their breath, the sound of the mechanical belt was heard again later. Carl's slaughter had not given up yet. Although the team had dispersed, it was still approaching. Carl's voice came from the communication channel, carrying a shred of sand and anger. Lin Hao, do you think you won by destroying a guardian? The secrets of the Rift Land are far more than this. When I get all the technology, you can't escape any of these tiny bits. This guy really can talk. Lin Hao gritted his teeth. Although his body had reached the limit, he still stood up and glanced at the teammates around him. Everyone was covered in injuries and had almost completely destroyed the equipment, but there was not much fear in their eyes, but there was a sense of ruthlessness. Brother Hao, what will we do next? Fighting hard will definitely not work. Yi Shuang asked in a low voice. The combat tablet in her hand had completely lost its power and could only rely on her naked eyes to observe the battle scene. Lin Hao was silent for a few seconds, thinking quickly in his brain. Although Carl was frustrated, the decisive situation was still there, and they were in no way able to fight head-on. But the secret of the Fracture Land has certainly not been fully revealed. The structure just now is just the tip of the iceberg. If more ancient technology can be found, there may be opportunities to turn around. Retreat, find a place to repair it first, and then, we have to go deep into the cracks and dig out the secrets of this place in full. Lin Hao said in a low voice, with an unquestionable determination in his language. He knew that this road was full of unknowns and dangers, but if they did not continue, they would always be cannon fodder in the star field in the border area and would never change their fate. Go deep? Boy, you are really not afraid of death. Zhang Yan grinned, but he still pointed. Okay, I'll be able to win this game with you, maybe I can really make a great deal. The team quickly gathered and dragged their tired bodies towards the deeper part of the cleft. Behind him, Car's team was still chasing, and the waves of energy vortex were still raging, but a fire ignited in Lin Hao's heart. He knew that this battle was just the beginning, and the real challenge was still ahead. The secrets of the Rift Land, the traits of strange stars, and even the fate of the entire human race, might be modified by their small army. In the sky, the gray cloud layer was torn open by a flash, illuminating the blue light hidden in the depths of the ruins, like a call or a warning. Lin Hao held the broken slam gun in his hand and led the team step by step towards the unknown front.